Well, if you're watching this video, chances are you've already bought one of these 2,000-pound winches from KFI, or you're thinking about buying one and you want to know how easy they are to install. So great news, I already put this one in and took it out so I can show you guys how it works. There are some things that you need to know ahead of time, and I'll share those, and then I'll give you some time-saving tips as we move forward to make this easy installation even easier. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome to Yellow Dog Farm. All right, let's talk about a few things that you need to know ahead of time before you even get started on the job. You're going to, of course, get the winch in the box, but you're also going to need a vehicle-specific mounting plate. This is the one that looks like here, and it's ordered separately, so you just hop on the KFI website and order it. There are lots of other generic ones out there, but I decided to go ahead and go with the KFI mounting kit, and I'm really glad I did it. It really helped out a whole lot. And then because I have a crew, I also needed to order some 10-foot long wires that run from the front of the vehicle all the way back to the battery. So those were the three things that I needed from KFI. Now there are a couple other things that you really need to get before you get started. The first one is this removal tool. I got mine on Amazon. I'll put the link down in the description. You can get them any number of places, including the auto parts store, but you're going to need to remove several plastic rivets off of the dash and the transmission tunnels so you can route wires. And this tool is perfect for it. So I suppose you could pry them off with pliers, but it is an absolute pain to do that. So you really need one of these tools. The second thing you're going to need is a T40 Torx tool. A lot of people don't have Torx, but you're going to want to make sure that you got the T40. You're going to need a crimper. There is one crimp you make. It's just putting this ring terminal onto a single wire. It then gets screwed onto a terminal post on the vehicle, so no pulling wires or anything in the buggy, so don't worry about that. It's really not that big of a deal. So those are the things that you're going to need before you even get started. So take a minute, go ahead and order those things up or run to the parts store and get that. And then you're going to need to check one other thing before you get into it. So let's take a look at that. So this is called the contactor. It's where all the leads hook up from the battery and the winch, and also the switch to bring the lead in and out. Polaris does a really good job. It says right on here, winch contactor, and I'll bring the camera down here so you can see it for yourself. But one thing you need to know is that these attach areas have a thick plastic reinforcement underneath it, and I found that the installation bolts for the contactor weren't long enough, and I had to run to the hardware store. So go ahead and place your contactor there and do a quick test with your bolts to see if they fit. That's something that you can do well ahead of time, and then just run to the hardware store if you're doing something else. So hopefully that'll save you a bit. You know, one of the main reasons that I'm putting this video together is to make this installation easier for others. One way you can help is by clicking like on the video and subscribing to our channel. It really helps people find this content. Thanks so much. So let's go ahead and put this in. Okay, if you've got those bolts and all the tools that we talked about, you're ready to get started. It just takes a little bit of effort to get the Polaris ready for the installation. The first thing you want to do is remove the seats, get access to the battery, and disconnect the battery. Yeah, if you haven't done a lot of work on your Polaris before, the battery is here in the back seat. You just pull the storage cubby out of the way, and then it's right below the cubby. Go ahead and take the terminals off of the battery itself, and you're ready to get started. Okay, it's time to attach the winch to the mount. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have the lugs on your left-hand side and the free spool or the spool adjustment on your right. Go ahead and flip the winch over, and you can see the 4 attach points here. You take the winch mounting bracket and place it right over the top of those mounting holes. There's 3 possible locating methods that they show in the directions, but here's the layout that you want for the winch. So you can see the mounting holes here, you got open slots here, and you're going to use the slots to mount it. Now just go ahead and bolt the winch to the mount with the 13 millimeter bolts, a lock washer, and a pan head washer. The last thing you want to do before you mount the winch is to go ahead and attach the wires. Now I'm using the alternate wiring diagram because I've got a crew cab which has the longer wires. So positive goes to yellow, negative goes to blue. In normal installation you would just match color to color that comes with the kit, but since I do have the crew, it's a little different. I'd really recommend you take a close look at the wiring diagram. Go ahead and remove the bumper by taking out 4 15 millimeter bolts. You can see the top one here, and then the bottom ones are located as you see here in the video. So these are the mounting holes that the winch mount is going to go to, the top and the bottom holes. Carriage bolts will be coming through these square holes. So I'm going to hold the mount up here, and you can see a matching square hole and the round hole. You want to start on the top so that you can go ahead and get the winch or the fastener for the winch started, and then come back and get the bottom. Next up are the bottom carriage bolts, and you want to put the bolt in from the back side and then tighten the nut on the front. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is put this Fairlead on the bumper. Sorry I'm out of frame, but it's really important for you to see the way that this stacks up and the way it works. So the Fairlead comes from the winch and the winch box and what comes in there. And then these 2 adapter plates come in the mount kit. You can see this one is the grill and aligns here. And then this piece actually aligns so that the Fairlead can mount to it, and it mounts to the grill. Now they tell you in the instructions to just go ahead and put these 3 pieces together and mount it to the bumper. I'll tell you that that's not the way it works. You can see here that the bumper has these OEM installation holes, and you're going to need to sandwich this all together. So you take the grill, line it up to the holes, take the adapter mounting plate, and then put on the Fairlead. Now these bolts come in the winch box itself. I'll get that in a second. You're going to put the longer bolt on this side, feed it all the way down through the Fairlead, the adapter plate, and the grill plate. And then you get a 13mm bolt. It's a hex shoulder bolt that comes in the mounting kit, and you run that through here. So that's what it looks like with all the hardware in there. I'll go ahead and cinch it down. The next step is to run wiring from the contacts back to the battery area. The first thing you're going to need to do is remove this transmission tunnel with the removal tool. Now, I've already made the installation once, and I didn't want to burn through a bunch of plastic tabs, so I didn't put it back on. I'm just going to go ahead and lift it off, but there are 2 tabs here, and then there are tabs in the front, and then this comes off. And it's great because now you can see all the routing you need to make. There's under the dash, through the front seat, and here into the back. So I'm going to point out what I'm going to do because it's impossible to get the camera in here while I'm doing the work. But you're going to connect the positive to the hot side of the solenoid post. So you just have the battery cable that comes up to this post. So this is where you hook up positive. And then down here is the ground stud where you'll hook up the negative. You can't see it, but it's right behind those wires. You really want to clean all that stuff up really nicely before you put it back together. There's lots of dirt and mud that gets back there, and it can mess up your ground. Ask me how I know. So let's get that hooked up. And you can see here, I've got the positive, which is yellow heat shrink in this case, hooked right up to the hot side of the solenoid, which just goes right back to the battery terminal. And then it's really difficult to see. But down here, we've got the ground hooked up, and it's a blue color. I'll see if I can get the light in there better. It's a little challenging. I don't know that that really helped, but you can see the blue lead down there, which is the negative, and it's hooked up to the ground post down there. So if you look there, you can see those nice, pretty black wires running underneath the seat along the tunnel. And then up here to the contactor. Now all the wires are attached here in the contactor. The yellow color is coming from the positive battery terminal. And once again, I'd really urge you to look at the instructions. I don't match color to color here. There's a red on the post, yellow on the wire, and that's because I'm using the alternate longer wires. Here's the blue is the negative that's coming from the winch. The red is the positive that's coming from the winch. And then the blue is the ground that's coming from the battery. Now I'm going to loosely install the switch that runs everything in and out. The instructions call for it to be installed and everything routed properly before you do that. But I really want to try this out and make sure we're okay. So I did crimp the number 10 ring post on here and attached it to this terminal post, which generates voltage when the ignition is turned on. And that goes into the switch wiring. And here's the remainder of the switch wire. I don't know if I can do it while I'm holding the camera, but I'll give it a try. Green to green. Black to black. All right, we'll go give this a try. Okay, I'm going to turn the key to the accessory position. Not sure if you can hear the buggy come to life there. And then I've just got the cable sitting right there. Let's try it. Fantastic. So it works just right. Now that we know it's working great, we can go ahead and do final routing on the wires, get the bumper put on, and work on installing this switch for real. Here's the final wire routing. You can see that yellow heat shrink there, and it dives down into the hole. And then if we come around into the wheel well, you can see the black wire come down, go around and through the opening into the tunnel. Here it is coming into the tunnel, going under the front seat. I gathered all my excess wiring here in a loop and wire tied it, and then it all runs back here to the battery area. So I think leaving this excess here is the better place to keep it all. All right, let's get that tunnel back on. Now when you buy this removal tool, you may as well buy a bunch of extra new plastic rivets. They're really not very expensive at all. And the first thing that's going to happen when you start popping these off is they're going to go flying all over the place and you're not going to find them anyway. So you may as well get a few new ones. See, we got that popped in there. And I'm just going to push the rivets in, and then I'll hammer in a second when I get all four of them in. Okay, I went ahead and put the bumper on off camera. Needed to go get some chores done actually, so I popped it on there. Really easy to put on, not a big deal. Taking the bumper off, you understand where all the attach points are. You want to pull the cable as you bring the bumper up. You want to pull the cable through and put your hook on, and of course you got to have the strap, right? That's what finishes the whole thing. Now the last thing left to do for the winch installation itself is to put these 13mm hex shoulder bolts right here, and what that does is it attaches all the grill mount to the actual winch mount itself. It bites down and creates a super strong mount. So there we go, it's all in. Now we're going to move on to the switch. So the last step is to install the switch, and I think I'm going to mount it right here. It'll be out of the way but easily visible for the driver. So that's my plan. Let's get to it. In order to install the switch in the dash, you need to go ahead and get access to the top of it. Unfortunately, the windshield is in the way from removing the plastic buttons, so you'll want to go ahead and take the window off first. Now you can remove the dash by popping the 4 plastic buttons and a little gentle pulling. Access is super easy with the dash removed. I removed the bolts from the switch housing and used the openings as a template to go ahead and drill the attachment locations. I also drilled an additional hole to allow the wires to pass from behind the unit into the back of the dash. I passed the switch wiring through the dash, and then I went ahead and mounted the switch using bolts and the threaded bosses that were already in the housing. I used 6 30-second screws. Darn near impossible to get the lighting right. Sorry about that, but if you look down here, here's the switch mounted, and then the wire comes out the back, and this is where having the dash off is really nice, so you can see the wire here where it's come off the back. And then we're just gonna route it through this hole here and then do a final mount.
Now it's time to put the dash back on and button up that windshield. Those plastic rivets are really easy to work with, and it really didn't take long at all.
Well, there we go. It's all done, easily done in a day. I hope you have as much fun as I do with this thing. In fact, let's go play around with it.
I was able to pull my Ranger out of 6 inches of mud, no problem, and pulled trees all over the place. I love this thing, and I wouldn't hesitate getting one anytime. I hope you do too, and have a great time with it.